and welcome to Behind the Curtain with Ade and Raan. I'm your host, Ade Richardson. Ron's not here today. He has a cold, a really bad cold, and he regrets not being able to come, but he'll be with us for our next podcast. So we're jumping back into these podcasts. I know we've been on hiatus for some months now. We did post a few podcasts, I think two very short ones with Ron and I only, but now we're getting back into the interview section of the podcast. And today I have with us Bill Fauth. Hi, Bill. Good to see you.
Hi, Ade. Thanks for having me.
So, Bill, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so I am a Psych-K facilitator. And what that means is we do high-speed mindset change. One of the things that I found with personal development is that, the conventional wisdom is trying to work in an area, the conscious level mind, which is hard to make the subconscious pay attention. So actually, let me share my screen and kind of give the concept. The idea, some people aren't familiar with it, but the idea with Psych-K is what we're doing is we're transforming subconscious limiting beliefs. And they do it in a way that conventional wisdom does it with affirmations or vision statements or goal statements. And the problem with that is you're dealing with a percentage or a part of the mind that only represents 5% of our awareness or our consciousness. So the idea is that, is there a tool or a way that we could deal with the part that is where most of our issues reside, which is in the subconscious? And so K is a tool that bypasses the conscious mind and works directly with the subconscious. And maybe as we talk today, we'll go through all the different aspects or nuances of that. But I'm a recovering financial advisor and accountant. I've been doing that for 30 years, and that's still my skill set. But as a child, I was beaten by my father. I was 7 years old. My brother and I used to fight. He's like 13 months older than me. And my mother would get upset because we'd fight as siblings, and he'd say, wait till your father gets home. And my father did what his father did. He took us upstairs and he would pull down our pants and he beat us. He whipped us with a belt. And I didn't realize how traumatized I was by it. Today, if he'd done it, it would have been child abuse because we had welts on the back of our legs and couldn't sit for a couple of days, that kind of thing. And he was just doing what he did, which he was disciplining his children. But for me, it was traumatizing. I lost all sense of trust and safety in the world. And I felt abused and, that whole thing. So for me, it's been a lifelong journey of recovering from complex PTSD. And not everybody has to go through that, but we all have the same, go through the same characterological developmental process. And in the process of our parenting, we have a lot of the positive, but also a lot of the negative. And those things are basically reside in our subconscious. We have these beliefs that, I am, or I believe, or I have, or, kind of like the way we are. And what happens is, a lot of times, what shows up in our life is, the imposter syndrome, or, that kind of thing, where I'm not good enough, or you see patterns of behavior. And again, let me know if I've talked too much, because I tend to do that.
No. I mean, the not good enough one, I think a lot of people can relate with. I certainly can, but it was something that was, under the surface in the subconscious, as you mentioned, and it was really, and still has its hands in my life to a certain degree. But I looked at the world through that filter of not enoughness. I'm just not so in my relationships, in my work, in my everything I did, there was this core belief of not being good enough.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. We go through the, let me share my screen and show some concepts or ideas of how this works.
Oh, great.
This is, I'm going to go right to the beginning. This is a workshop I did a few weeks ago for a group of people who are mediums. And the idea, they're using affirmations to kind of install their beliefs. So the idea, and these are some of the ideas, I just like, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. On a quantum level, we're all made of the same stuff, which is energy. And there's a thing called quantum entanglement, meaning that we're all connected. And so this, I love this picture because it just shows that there's more to us than meets the eye, And then, we all have a job to do, which is to be a blessing and make a difference. How we do that is up to us. So the idea is we need to become the best, most upgraded version of ourselves that we can be. So how do we do that? That's the issue. And then the other thing, I just like this, again, this is a water drop. Love is the stuff we're made of. Again, on a quantum level, we're made of energy. On to go up the other end of the scale, on a spiritual level, we're made of love. So I'm going to jump down to, we talked about, basic beliefs that I am safe, I am enough, I am worthy, I am lovable, I am loved. What we do with Psych-K is we reparent the subconscious. We heal childhood wounds, and we stop the self-sabotage and heal the imposter syndrome. Before the process, people have the grime of life on the windows of their soul. With a couple of Psych-K sessions or longer, then they have a happier life. The idea is to improve the quality of life. That's what all the healing modalities are trying to do. They improve the quality of life. So how we do that, it really depends upon, where we're doing the work. So there's 7 areas of life that we talk about: grief and loss, self-esteem, relationships, spirituality, personal power, prosperity, health and body. The different aspects of our life. Here is the framework or the model that we use to kind of explain what's going on. The conscious mind is called the iceberg model of consciousness. And the part that's sticking out of the water is our conscious mind, but it only represents 5% of our awareness. And it's a 40-bit per second processor, so it's relatively slow.
Wow.
And here we have all our logical, conscious level stuff. Right? Then the part that's below the water, which is mostly 95% of our awareness, is, by definition, we're not aware of it. It's affecting us, but we're not consciously aware of it. And this is a 40 million bit processor per second processor. So the subconscious mind is orchestrating the 30 trillion plus or minus cells in our body. It's keeping us heart beating. It's keeping our brain functioning. It's keeping everything working. So there's an intelligence that's connected to that. And it's, a million times faster than the conscious mind.
Yeah.
And then there's the superconscious mind, or some people would say your higher self or your soul or your spirit or the Gaia principle. The idea of universal awareness, there's a higher consciousness than just us as human beings. And the idea that has unlimited processing power. So the idea is that, how do we come by the beliefs that we have? And, well, just to talk about this, the mind has about 65,000 thoughts per day. 85% are not creative. 95% of our thoughts are on autopilot. 90% of most of the thoughts that we have are negative. So we are creatures of habit. We all go through the same developmental process. We start as children, 9 months in utero, then first 2 years is the reptilian brain. And if you look here, this is the structure of the brain. The reptilian brain is a little part. It's the oldest part of our brain. It teaches us fight, flight, or freeze. And when we come into the world, we're learning whether the world is a safe place to be or not. And we have imprinting going on. Then from about 2 to 8, we have the limbic system, which is the reptilian part of your brain, and it learning out whether we're lovable, whether we're worthy, those kind of things. And then we go through the developmental process. The neocortex, or the logical part of the brain, is built out to about age 25. So the idea, as human beings, we all go through the same developmental process. But the idea is that with all these thoughts and imprinting going on, there's a thing called the reticular activating system. I don't have a slide for that, but the idea that we're being bombarded with all the stimulus from the environment, that our brain has a way of filtering it or limiting what comes in. And it's called the reticular activating system. It's been studied. And you ever notice, like when you're buying a new car, and all of a sudden you notice the car is just like that on the road?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. All of a sudden, our attention or our focus is aware of this. So now we're letting other things filter, and they've been there the whole time. It's just we're not aware of them because it's not part of our consciousness, or we haven't filtered it. So there's a lot of that going on. We have a lot of beliefs from childhood about who we are, how worthy we are. Again, it goes back to, am I safe? Am I enough? Am I worthy? Am I lovable? And we spend our whole life trying to. A lot of people spend their life trying to cope. We're trying to do the
Yeah.
best we can. They don't heal; they cope. And
Let me ask you a
yeah,
question going back to the car. So if you're wanting to buy a car, like, I don't know, red Ford Mustang, and then like you're seeing them everywhere because that desire or, that's kind of in your brain. So is what you're saying, if you have this belief that's in the subconscious of not being good enough or of you're always wrong or nothing ever works out for me, does that mean that you're going to somehow using like confirmation bias uh, seek those things out subconsciously out in the world to confirm this limiting belief?
you hit the nail on the head. Exactly. The idea is that we're energetic beings and we're vibrating, and the law of attraction kicks in here. So our beliefs become the level that we vibrate at. So if we believe that we're not worthy, we're going to find ways to prove that to ourselves. And this is where, again, the self-sabotage comes in, is that we want, on a conscious level, we want to say, I'm worthy, I'm lovable, I'm all these things, but we end up seeing that the quality of our life is not where we want it to be. And there's repetitions that keep coming up and negative patterns, and we don't know what to do about it. We're writing all the affirmations and we're taking the self-help classes and we're watching the videos and we're doing everything we can, but things don't change. And it's because the issue is that the issues are in the subconscious. And until the subconscious changes, it's difficult to change the beliefs. Now, here's another model or way to look at this. It's our conscious mind is kind of like a dormouse. If you like, images or pictures, little tiny thing the size of a peanut. Our subconscious mind is like a bull elephant or a huge elephant. It's much bigger. And what conventional healing modalities do, or conventional therapy, or whatever you want to call it, is to try to get the bull elephant of the subconscious mind to obey the dormouse. And the idea affirmations is to take a lot of effort and persistence and emotional energy to finally be lodged in the subconscious. Perhaps if we shout loud enough, the subconscious mind will hear us and actually listen and obey. So this is the challenge, is that this is what we want. Everybody wants to have their subconscious believe that they're lovable and they're worthy and they're great and all those things. But if because of our parenting, because of the upbringing that we've had, we have these limiting beliefs. In my case, again, it was my father was a working alcoholic, and my mother had a nervous breakdown during that time, and so the idea that the quality of the parenting that I got was less than desirable. So, and a lot of us have that type of thing. So. So for me, again, I did 20 years of modern psychoanalysis. It was very helpful because it helped me understand why I was the way I am, or the issues that I've had. I was, because I was beaten as a child, I was angry all the time. I didn't trust men. So for me to be, I needed to be self-employed just because I didn't trust people. I didn't trust, the world. And so if I had a boss, I was sure he was out to get to me. He's going to be just like my father, not have my best interest at heart. And so I've always had to be self-employed. And then, so with the psychoanalysis, I understood a lot of that. I used to have dreams of being chased by dragons and monsters and dinosaurs and, the earth, volcanoes, that kind of thing. All that anger kind of calmed down with the psychoanalysis, but it didn't change the beliefs of worthiness. If you're being beaten by your father, how lovable can you be? How good can you be? How good of a son can you be? So I had a lot of issues around worthiness that I needed to deal with. So I did, 8 years of law of attraction, Abraham Hicks, moving up the emotional scale, which would help some, but again, it didn't change things. All these things are dealing at the conscious level. The psychoanalysis is designed to use the talk therapy to try to influence the subconscious. That takes a long time and a lot of effort. And so it wasn't until I read a book by Bruce Lipton called The Biology of Belief. And he talks about Psych-K in that. It sounded too good to be true, but I needed to learn more. And he wrote another book called The Honeymoon Effect. And he talked about how he used Psych-K to help himself, heal his marriage and his relationships. And again, I was skeptical. It sounded too good to be true. So I did a year's worth of research looking for everything I could find about Psych-K. And what I did is I finally hired a Psych-K facilitator. She was in Colorado. I was in New York at my home. And in one session, we were able to transform the memory of the fear and the terror and the horror of being beaten into a slapstick comedy, into a cartoon. Didn't change what happened to me, but it changed my emotional relationship to what happened, where it was no longer dangerous. And once, and again, 20 years of psychoanalysis, moving up the emotional scale. So for me, I was kind of convinced that that this is amazing. And next month I was in a Psych-K basic workshop. The month after that, an advanced workshop. I've taken 10 Psych-K workshops, and I wanted to know how this works. And doing the research that I did about Psych-K, I found that you could find out about what Psych-K does and how it helps, but it won't tell you how to do Psych-K. You need to take the training in order to do that. So, for me, I was able to, I did it mainly for myself. I wanted to heal my emotional wounds. I wanted to heal my self-esteem. I wanted to feel better about myself. So I did a lot, 3 or 4 years of Psych-K for myself. And now I'm at the stage where I'm paying it forward and want to help other people with it. So as a Psych-K facilitator, I do Psych-K with people. We help people move up the emotional scale and, and feel better and heal and stop the self-sabotage. And again, we go to the, wanting to deal with these aspects of life that aren't working. And, the core beliefs when I start working with people is, am I safe? If we don't feel safe, nothing's going to change. And if I am enough, am I worthy? Am I good enough? Am I lovable? Am I loved? And until we feel those things, and again, in my case, if you're being beaten as a child, how can you feel lovable? How can you feel loved? And different people have different things. There's abandonment issues. There's all kinds of things. What I find is that people tend to cope. So they tend to be out in the world and live in our day-to-day world. We have to kind of have it together. You don't want to wear your heart on your sleeve and be wounded, around. People they're attracted to the power and the confidence rather than to the vulnerability. But until you deal with the vulnerability, that other side of it is just a facade.
Yeah, I certainly have found that to be the case with me. Um, my thing was constantly seeking approval, from everyone, and really betraying myself in the process, and not setting boundaries. So I kind of looked at got my safety, my sense of safety from if this person is approving of me right now. And, they would have to really express that they approve, because I'm looking for that disapproval. I'm looking for that not good enough feeling. So if they're just having a bad day, then it's like I'm left in that conversation or in that experience with that individual feeling like bad about myself. Well, just feel, the feeling is, oh, I'm not safe. And so what I would do is try different ways to get that approval, try different techniques. And then, some of the techniques might be manipulation. Some of the techniques might be, well, I'm really better than this person, try to make myself put the person lower and try to look for faults in the person so that I feel good enough. But none of this stuff really worked because I'm always left with that feeling of not good enough and feeling not safe. And, I mean, to the point of when it was really triggered, not even being able to sleep at night. Like I would just really feel in survival mechanism. And then you mentioned abandonment as well. That's one of my things as well, feeling abandoned, in childhood. That's what I felt. It was a big thing. And when that's triggered, I feel like I'm that 7-year old in the dark. I could feel the space. I could feel the what the room looked like. I can feel the it felt cold, it felt dark, it felt scary, it felt violent. I would feel all those feelings, And the circumstance in real time was just maybe someone didn't call me back. You know,
Yeah.
maybe someone just didn't show up or didn't give me the attention. And then I'm like, oh my gosh. And the part that's so frustrating about it is, and I'm sure a lot of people can identify with this, is when you start to see that, wait a minute, this is not, why is this causing me to feel this way? Like this logic, the logic part of the brain is so, you can get into that sort of, the logic part of the brain is saying, this is not rational. They did this, they just didn't call. You shouldn't be feeling this way. It doesn't make sense. So then that inner conflict begins. Like, and it could feed that tape of, okay, well, that not good enough. Something's wrong with me because why am I feeling like this? When nothing really extreme or unsafe really happened. So then, I'm left feeling like, well, there's something really wrong with me. And then you start turning that, beating myself up, that self-pity. You just start spiraling down into this hole of not good enough and just,
Mhm.
and you can really get, I mean, for me, into this point of despair,
Mhm.
just despair and not knowing what to do about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I'm glad you're sharing that, because that's the issue. Is it's not logical, it's not rational. We have patterning or imprinting going on, and as a 7-year old, you're usually from like age zero, when you're born, or even in utero, there's imprinting going on. The nervous system is being imprinted, and pre-verbal, before age 2, before we have the language, it's just impressions. And from 2 to about 8 is when really our brain is just recording everything. We don't know, we're not judging it, we're not evaluating it, we're just saying, so again, in those experiences of abandonment, and we don't feel safe in the world, or if if we're getting threatened, the abandonment of threatens it's an existential threat. I don't feel safe. you know so the idea is, again, it's not rational, it's not logical, because it's not residing in the logical part, in the the conscious mind. It's residing in the subconscious mind. There's the psychological, I think where Psych-K, I think, helps the most is in the psychological model. There's different states and stages of consciousness we have as human beings, and different belief systems. But the idea is that, again, we have beliefs about ourselves, and how do we change those beliefs? And one of the things that I found, again, for me, it was, being, not feeling safe in the world because I was being beaten. And I found that in my 20s, I became an Ironman. I became a triathlete. And part of it was that, one, I tried to quit smoking. I smoked from the time I was 14 to the time I was 21, and I
Yeah.
found myself huffing and puffing, and I didn't want to feel that way, so I tried to quit, and I couldn't do it with willpower. So I hired a hypnotist, and for 4 sessions, and after the third session, I threw away the cigarettes, never touched them again. But they substituted the addiction for cigarettes to exercise.
Yeah.
Became an Ironman. But the other side of it was, I love the exercise, I love the training, I love that. But the part of it was, I felt empowered. Nobody was going to mess with me. Nobody was going to screw around with me. The repetition of my father wasn't going to happen again. I didn't have to go around the world feeling unsafe because I'm the meanest, toughest guy in the room, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, again, an overreaction to But the idea is, again, from not feeling safe in the world.
Yeah. No, I did something similar. You know, I would walk around with a really angry face. I grew up in Brooklyn and Crown Heights, and in my growing up, there was abuse in the household, not towards me, but towards my mom, and so I felt very vulnerable and helpless because I wanted to help, and I felt like, you know, um, I felt like this sense of guilt and this sense of powerlessness that I couldn't do that, and this sense of abandonment that, the people that I look towards to be the saviors and the people to come in and help, they weren't there, So I, I started to build this armor, and part of it was just looking very mean, like in Crown Heights. There was this guy, he once told me, this adult, he said, why don't you smile? You just, I was
Right.
just walking around with like, and I just had this serious look. And then, I got into sports, I got into martial arts, and now I do jujitsu, always kind of like wanting to be ready
Right.
and feeling this sense of, empowerment and strength and everything. But it could only go so far, because you know someone, well, someone comes with a gun that's not going to really do too much to protect me, but it's still, those core beliefs are still there, and to be quite honest, if someone just doesn't have to be big, could be like just some small person, if they just approach me and start talking to me very authentically and even compassionately, it can trigger me. It could trigger like this sort of like, oh no, I'm being seen, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
could, and so all of that strength, all that jujitsu, all that armor, all of those walls I put around me, you know, I can feel vulnerable. And a lot of times that's a scary place for me to be, because at a point in my life, it really was a scary place to be, you
Right.
know. Now it's not. And like you said, the vulnerability, there's a strength in that. And it's really important to be vulnerable and to feel those things and to be authentic. And that's years and years of therapy, of doing Psych-K sessions with you. Constant work on this is starting to help me to be able to be authentic, to be open, to open my heart, to be vulnerable. Um, what that leads to my next question. Uh, what's a typical sort of response that someone working with you or people that you've worked with, how have they responded to the Psych-K session?
That's a great question. And what I find is that people who come to me, they usually find me through the Psych-K website. And there's a whole bunch of other facilitators listed there, and they resonate with my profile and my story. And then they call me or they text me, and then we do a one-on-one and get to know you kind of session. But these are people who have been through a lot of other healing modalities. They're seeking, they're searching. They are serious about wanting to improve the quality of their lives and feel better about themselves. And they haven't found that yet, so they're still seeking. So the idea is that if they're motivated, there's got to be a willingness to change. If someone else is telling you got to change, it's not going to happen. It's got to come from within. So having said that, the idea that the people who are motivated to change or improve the quality of their life, and they're seekers, if you want to call it that, then they get better results than the ones that don't. So that's one thing. So what I found, like I have clients who come in that they have, one person came in, he has a fear of public speaking, and he wanted to do a couple of sessions. We did a couple of sessions, and I haven't seen him since, which is fine. He got what he wanted out of it. And then I have other people I've been working with for a couple of years that were really spiraling up in consciousness, and they're really improving the quality of their life. And in the 7 categories of change, in the 7 areas of life, we've worked on improving the feelings that they have, or the quality of life that they have, and they see it in the footprint of their life, so to speak, or the printout of their life. The quality of life goes up. So the way Psych-K works, is there are 3. Let me just share my screen again, and there's 3 things that 3 ways that Psych-K helps. I don't know if you can see this. One
Yes,
is
yes, I
it
see it.
overwrites limiting beliefs, and we install new beliefs. So the idea is that's where most of the work is done. That's basically we're taking like a record player. There's a certain pattern that's playing. We take that record off and we install a new record. And the idea by changing the beliefs. And we do it with, I am statements. Let me go here. Where to go? I guess I took it out. The idea is that, I am, I have, I deserve, I believe, I feel. We take first person, present tense, short, emotionally meaningful statements, and then we create basically it's an affirmation like thing. And then we basically use Psych-K to muscle test. That's how we communicate with the subconscious. The other thing that I found fascinating, how can you communicate with the subconscious? It doesn't speak English, it doesn't speak, directly to you. So how do you communicate with it? Well, it turns out that the body, the physicality that we have, the energy in our body is determined partly by our beliefs. So if I make a statement that I am lovable and my subconscious doesn't believe that, the energy in my muscles is going to be different. So when I muscle test and test weak, then I know that my subconscious doesn't believe it. If I make a statement that, I love myself and I believe that, and my test strong, the energy in my muscles is different. So then I can the idea is we don't ask questions, we make statements and we find out whether the subconscious believes it. So if I make a statement that I am worthy of the best that love and life have to offer, and it tests weak, then I know that that's something I don't believe. And then we use the Psych-K protocols and balances to install that belief. And so the idea that there's 14 different balances. So I have some clients that come in and, I have like a 3-month coaching program where we go through all the balances and we make sure that we're touching on all the different areas of life, the 7 categories of change. And you and I have done a lot of that stuff,
Yeah, and I find it fascinating because, with the muscle testing, which makes a lot of sense to me because whenever like someone asks me, "Hey, can you come and do this for me?" And when I say yes, but my body says no, I know it. And many times I don't listen to my body, and that's where that sense of self-betrayal comes from.
yeah.
But every time, if I know something's good for me, and if my body will indicate if it's a yes or no.
Yeah, your subconscious knows, and the other thing, the subconscious is connected to the superconscious, which is connected to spirit or your soul, So there's a higher wisdom that knows what's best for you, and it's connected to your subconscious, and it percolates up to your conscious mind. But yeah, if you've been to a chiropractor, they do muscle testing also. They do, different type of muscle testing. If you've been to a nutritionist, they usually use muscle testing to decide what vitamins or what supplements you need, that kind of thing. Because again, there's a higher wisdom or knowledge that you can tap into. The other thing that Psych-K does is, the second one here is transform the perception of stress, past, present, or future. And it changes the emotional meaning making associated with traumatic events. This was my attraction to Psych-K. I was sold because, after 20 years of psychoanalysis and the law of attraction and everything else, in one session, I was able to change the emotional relationship to something I've been struggling my whole life to try to transform. It was just amazing. And I've had clients come in, they're going to have a meeting next week with their boss and they're stressed out about it. So we can't change that you're going to have a meeting with your boss. We can change your stress around it. Doesn't have to be as stressful. Or if they're going, to a, whatever it is. So, and then the other thing that I think is fascinating about Psych-K is we can receive messages from situations or conditions. Sometimes if we have a physical condition or an emotional condition, a fear or something like that, it might be a message from your superconscious mind or your spirit or your soul trying to get you to pay attention to something. And it's kicking you in the shins to get you to pay attention. So the idea there's a message there. So we can find out if there is a message for you from your superconscious mind or your soul about a particular situation or condition. And if there is, then we can balance for it. So you receive the message and resolve the issue.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's especially me now dealing with a flu or cold, whatever it is I have. If excuse me if you hear me coughing and sniffling during this podcast, but I feel like the message I actually feel really good today. Yesterday, I mean, I don't I'm not at my best physically. Yesterday I had a fever. Um, but I feel good in that I ate very clean because I was trying to get rid of this cold. It's taking a, just drinking ginger, lemon. I just like rested, steam, like doing all this stuff. And, the rest, everything being, you know, um, all these things I did, it helped me to feel better, not just with the cold, but just my spirit. I feel like I needed that rest. I feel like I was putting things in my body that wasn't the greatest thing, and kind of burning myself out, like doing a little bit too much and not relaxing. So I think that's the message I'm getting
Oh, that,
from
yeah.
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 So another question is, so what advice would you give someone who's interested in just trying out Psych-K for personal growth?
So the onboarding process, if you want to call it that, is again, you either go to the Psych-K International website, and they'll have that as a slide, or go to my website, and or just the idea is we make a connection, then we set a time for a meeting. The issue that I would ask is that, again, the diagnostic questions that we use with Psych-K is, what do you have in your life that you don't want? And usually this is good information, because people, ask that question, people start saying all the things that are wrong with their life, which is good information. Not that you want to empower that, but you want to know that, because if this is what you don't want, now we can come up with statements of what you do want. And that's the other diagnostic question. What is it in your life that you don't have that you do want? Or what do you want? And then we can say, well, this is what you don't want. I don't want to be unhappy. I don't want to be undervalued, or whatever the issue is. One of the statements is, I am worthy of the best that love and life have to offer. And we muscle test that, and we find out whether people believe that. And if they do, then no work to be done. If they don't, then we do the install, we use the Psych-K to install that. So let me, part of the, one of the questions I would ask is, what areas of your life are not working for you, or not working as well as you want? And again, in the Psych-K world, we have an assessment that I use with people, like a before and after, circle of harmony, it's called. And the idea is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how's your emotional health? How's your mental health? How is your life purpose? How's your nutritional and eating habits? How's your family situation? How's your body and weight situation? How is you're handling stress? How's the money and finances? How's your self-esteem? And we can use this pretty much for any area of your life. And on a scale of 1 to 10, you rate it. And then we connect the dots. And then you have a pretty bumpy wheel. And then through the Psych-K sessions, we do, work on these areas. And then we try to improve to see if you're moving up the scale. And the idea, ultimately, you want to get the wheel to be totally round. And the areas that we work on are grief and loss, self-esteem, relationships, spirituality, personal power, prosperity, health, and body. We have like 11 standard goal statements, or balanceable goal statements, in each of these areas. So if someone is not sure, that they've got issues and they can't come up with something, we can basically go through those goal statements and then test to see whether your subconscious already believes them. If it does, no work to be done. If it doesn't, then we can install those beliefs. So it's a very powerful process. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, and I want to go back because I think something you said a little while ago is very important. Is you do want to hear what you don't want in your, the person's life, and you want to be able to hear that, for the person to express that. And I just wonder, why is it so easy for us to, we're pretty good at saying, hey, I don't want this, this is what's wrong, here's the list. But then when we start moving into the I am statements, or these are the things that I want in life, it feels like, I mean, for me, like I'm doing something wrong. Like it feels like that imposter syndrome. So like, what do you think you're doing? Like, like how could you be so bold to say, like, that stuff is still difficult for me.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because that part of the issue is, again, the core beliefs that we have is not feeling worthy, not feeling safe. It goes back to that. For me, it was the same kind of thing. I was always afraid to. I had success issues because if I was successful, then I'd become a target. People would notice me, and I'd get attention, and that was dangerous. So for me, it was always a form of self-sabotage of trying to get ahead, and I'd get so far, but then I'd have to push myself down, and I do it unconsciously, not even aware of it. But I see the repetition in my life. But the core issue is I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel like the world was a safe place to be, and people were dangerous, and authority figures were dangerous, and so I think there's still I mean, that's really the core beliefs that we talk about. I'm lovable, I am safe, I am worthy, I am enough, and if all of a sudden, and that triggers you. I mean, it's good that you're noticing that, because that means there's still work to be done, or there's issues there. And, the idea is that there's one thing to notice it. It's another thing to let it become debilitating. You can just notice it and kind of let it go, and you're doing that. You're aware of, very self-aware, but you don't necessarily let it stop you from doing the things you want to do in your life.
And so is it important to, when you do the I am statements, to have a certain emotion behind that as well?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, the idea is that the subconscious is feeling based, so we do want to have feelings on it. The idea of the logical mind, and then there's the emotional mind. There's the left brain, right brain, however you want to call it. So the issue is, again, what is the again, on an emotional scale, what is it that you want that you don't have? And it's like feeling safer, or feeling happier, or having more money, or having a better relationship. And you can go down almost a diagnostic. Well, what would that do for you? How would that make you feel? And yeah, so you're asking the right question. If you say I am worthy of, again, if I am worthy of the best the love and life have to offer, and the idea is, what are you triggered by that, or how does that feel? I know when I was doing that, I think, yeah, that's what I want to believe, but I don't believe that. It's like, who am I to feel loved? Who am I to be, feel worthy?
Well,
life, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes, that confirmation bias kicks up, like those beliefs are, like nothing ever works out for me. So if I say something like, yeah, I'm working in, making films, collaborating with, interesting people, and the mind is like, well, you know, you didn't do good in grade school. You weren't consistent. You did really bad in math and history. You didn't get the degrees, well, that you were supposed to get. You wasted your 46 year. The mind starts coming up with all these things. Like, how are you going to make up make up all this time that was wasted? You're fooling yourself. Like, that stuff starts to come up. So how do you address that?
Well, again, it comes back to worthiness. Again, it's amazing how many times I was just working with somebody this morning. I've been working with for 2 years, and we've done a lot of the statements. But the idea is that we make a statement. She said, I am. Let me see. She says, I am worthy and valuable. And that's the statement that she made. And then what we did, we started doing the balance, and she muscle tested, didn't test strong, it was weak. So the idea is that we did what we call the new direction balance, and there was crossover. She goes inside and starts repeating that to herself. And there was a part of her that started feeling like, no, I'm not valuable. So that was good information that we have. The feeling tone, or the resistance to the statement, is what we're looking for, because there's another belief underlying her that, I'm not valuable. So it's an iterative process, I guess, is part of the process. There's the onion layer model, we're peeling back the onion, but there's also the network model. This belief is associated with this belief, where you pull on the string over here, it's going to affect things down here. And, everything is connected in some way. And the idea is that we want empowering beliefs rather than disempowering beliefs. So the idea is noticing them or become aware of them, and then we can work on them, and
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The yeah, because I could see that, is there with myself. And I'm sharing some of like I have made a lot of progress in these areas as well, but I just want to sort of, it's an ongoing
yeah.
thing. So I think what I found with the healing work is, and for me, there's always something to something to work on, something to like peeling the onion, something comes up, and I'm getting better at just because that could feed into the not good enough thing as well. Like, oh my gosh, I have so much, like this is not normal. It's like never ending, and yeah, so I think, what I find that's been helpful just being gentle and patient with myself and compassionate.
Mhm.
These things are very helpful. Bill, we're at the about the 1 hour mark,
Wow.
and I know the time goes very fast, and I don't I keep coughing and I muted myself, but um, so is there anything that you wanted to talk about that you feel like we didn't touch on today?
Okay. Well, in other words, I have clients that come to me with, they're having struggling in their marriage and they want to improve the relationship. And so we do what we call the relationship balance, where I would surrogate for their partner, and then we would do the process, which really is designed to make the couple or the people that are in this relationship be in a whole brain state when they're together with each other. Sometimes
Yeah.
there's stress in a marriage and because they're not communicating. And then there's another balance that we do. It's called the rapport balance, where some people are using the neuro-linguistic programming part of it. Some people are auditory dominant, and some people are visual, and some people are kinesthetic or feeling. So when you're talking to somebody who's visual, talks very fast, and sees things in images, and somebody's feeling oriented, they tend to miss each other. So there's a way of connecting, having them be able to hear each other, even though they have different modalities. So that improves the quality of a relationship. I have other, people come in. Right now, there's actually a doctor came in. He's trying to lose weight. He's at 65 in his life, and he's severely overweight. But he's determined to try to get his quality of his life back. He wants to be around for another 30 years if he can, And so the idea, what are the limiting beliefs around, why is being overweight, necessary? What's the upside for that for him? And we talk about how he was abused as a child, and again, for him, it feels safe if he's big, people aren't going to intimidate him.
Yeah.
There's also impulse control. The idea that he just needs it's gratification, not being loved enough or not being feeling worthy enough. So he's always gratifying himself with food.
Mm.
And now he's
Mhm.
at the stage where we're working on the worthiness issues and the lovability issues, and that's helping him shift his the need for the food and enhancing his diet. He's already lost like 30 pounds or 35 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah, so Psych-K is addressing, it sounds like the trauma there and the limiting beliefs because, research has shown that that's a big factor in addictions.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. The other thing, I found that I tend to have an addictive personality. My father has a working alcoholic. My brother died of addiction to overdose and drugs, and I used to, when I was in my teens, I drank, and I found that I just couldn't control. So I don't drink at all. I don't smoke at all.
Yeah.
So I have that the. But the idea is that the people who have that, they need to substitute. The idea of substituting. Uh, you
Yeah,
know,
that's an important part because I had the same thing. I was drinking and drugging through my teens up to like early 20s. And so, yeah, with I didn't realize the core,
yeah, yeah,
driving force behind that. I just thought that something was wrong with me. And
yeah.
yeah,
Trying to
yeah,
get the idea of the gratification from the addiction, from we're looking for the love, or we're looking for the gratification, or the sense of well-being that comes from whatever the the substance,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
or the numbing of it. You know, that's the other thing. You know, with the alcohol, it's a depressant, so it numbs you. You know.
Yeah. I mean, there's a saying, the addiction is not the problem, it's a solution to the problem or a symptom of the problem.
Symptom of the
But
problem.
yeah, but the problem is, at the root of it,
Yeah.
they say about, I think it was like the research was 97 or 98% of addicts have trauma,
Yeah.
untreated trauma.
Well, that's what I found. For me, that's my story, complex PTSD. And, you know, there's so many people who have that. And I mean, everybody's had a certain amount of trauma. Maybe they weren't abused as a child, but they have, you know, safety issues. They have worthiness issues. They have abandonment issues. And most people are in denial. I call them Egyptians, you know, they're in denial about it, you know. Um, but so the idea is it's also creating a safe space where it's okay to be not okay. That's the other thing I find with Psych-K. I need to communicate that to people, that it's okay to be not okay. If you're hiding or defending against your issues, then we can't get at them. You know, Psych-K doesn't have the ability to get it. It's making them conscious and then changing the belief systems that make it work. So again, the idea is that, you know, I have other people with relationships, you know, there's work related stuff. There's I have one person who is a trader. She's a day trader. And we're working on issues with, we did one of the balances we did is what we call a alternative life bonding balance, where you basically envision the perfect life that you want, that you didn't have. And then we merge them, you know, through a visualization process as part of the balancing, and, you know, again, the energetic shift. And part of it is worthiness, and the idea of, you know, having, picture was wanting a house where she can, you know, live with her kids and take care of her mother and have the cars and the furniture and, you know, take vacations. And there's a part of her that, you know, just doesn't feel worthy of that. And so the idea of, again, working on that worthiness issue, that sense of self-esteem and lovability, and it comes up in different aspects of the 7 categories of change, you know, but but now she's doing very well, and she's getting confident as a trader, and she's, you know, making money, and, you know, so it's Psych-K finds you when you're ready. You know, not everybody is ready for Psych-K. Not everybody wants to change. You know, on a consciousness level, you know, not everybody's ready to change. You know, they want the things of the goodies of life, but they don't want to do the work it's going to improve. You know, the cause and effect relationships, you know, is what we think about, we bring about. So if we're thinking about negative things, we're going to bring about negative things. But not everybody's aware of that or willing to do that, or maybe they are, but there's this fear, and, you know. So, you know, my encouragement would be is to, what do you have to lose? Try Psych-K. You know, give it a shot. You know, it's again, if everything is fine in your life and everything's wonderful, and maybe you don't need Psych-K. What I find, just, you know, I find that there's maybe 3 levels of people. There's people who are very, Michael Beckwith came up with a framework of consciousness. There's people who believe that the world happens to them, you know, and the idea of victimhood, and a lot of people operate from that. And then there's people who believe that life happens by me, you know, so it's an efforting process. You know, we have to be, do, and have. So we have to effort and make things happen. And then there's people life happens through me, which is where we get more spiritual, and we let, you know, the grace of God flow through us, and, you know, or we become a blessing, that kind of thing. And then life happens as me, which is enlightenment, which, you know, very few people get to that. But the idea is that most of the world is living in the victimhood and the, you know, I got to effort, make it happen level of consciousness. And Psych-K works very well in that area. It can help you move from the victimhood into the empowerment stage. And so we find that there's people who are, you know, they're willing to move out of their victimhood, so that they're trying. And they got a lot of work to do, and that's fine. You know, and I find that Psych-K works with other modalities. You know, there's it's an energetic process. If you want to look it up, it's energy psychology. It's a subset. If you go to Bruce Lipton's website, he talks about 40 different, you know, energy modalities. You know, Reiki, EFT, tapping, EMDR, all kinds of energy. All of them are trying to shift energy so we change our belief system. And there's another level of people who are doing okay, but they have one area of their life that they want to improve. Maybe it's a relationship, or maybe it's make more money, or maybe it's have a better relationship with their kids, or, that kind of thing. And then there's people who are doing very well, but they want to do better. You know, their life is okay, but they're achievers, and they want to whatever they got to do to clear whatever is hindering them. They want to do that because they want the best for themselves and others. That, you know, that kind of thing. The other thing I just wanted to mention is it just went out of my head.
Well, while you think of that, you know, you did touch on a part that the action part. So not only deciding to take the step to, you know, working on doing trying Psych-K or some other modality, but there's also action within that, you know. So what types of practices complement Psych-K, and how much is action after the session important to the overall results?
That's a great question. And, you know, part of the Psych-K, you know, the training process is, you know, when we do a Psych-K balance, we're changing things energetically, but we live in a time-oriented, action-oriented universe. So after a session, I ask my clients to, you know, what can you do in the, you know, a goal in the next, you know, week that would show that your belief is shift? Is there an action step you could take around that would support the new belief? So that's part of it. The other thing is that a lot of people do journaling. They do, again, all the traditional things can't hurt. They can only help. It's usually self-awareness. One of the things that I'm finding more and more is that there's one of the protocols that we have is called the Gaia protocol. And it's opening a portal, if you want to call it that, an energetic portable, spiritual portal, if you want to call it that, where basically we sit in meditation for 15 minutes and we just let the universe kind of fill us, you know, and that's the energy. And on a conscious level, we're not sure what's going on, but we know that, you know, the spirit is flowing through us, and whatever is supposed to happen will happen. And, you know, and all the traditionals, all the healing modalities all talk about meditation. They talk about, you know, presence and consciousness. So this is a way of doing that. Psych-K is a way of kind of like clearing the grime so we can let more of life show through, the light of light shine through our life, you know. So yeah.
Wonderful. So if someone wants to work with you, or just, you know, they're curious about Psych-K, how can they do that?
Okay, so I let me just talk a little bit about my fee structure and what I've been doing. You know, basically, you know, the onboarding process is to contact me with either text me. I'll put up the slide for that. You know, you can text me at my cell phone number 631-896-6270. My email is bill@blbnow, and BLB Now stands for Beyond Limiting Beliefs Now, which is my website. Or you can go to the Psych-K portal, which has where my profile is about Psych-K. What I've been finding is that some people have the ability to pay and others don't. But my goal is to be a blessing and make a difference. You know, I've been benefited from this. So what I found is I have a sliding scale. Some people, you know, the going rate for Psych-K is 150 an hour. Some people can afford that and there's not an issue. Other people say that I can't afford that. They pay 100 or they pay 50 or they don't pay anything. My goal right now is to get this out there and to pay it forward and to help people with it. I do have a one session, you know, basically the onboarding process is people, we have a 15-minute get to know you session. Sometimes it goes to half an hour, but I answer all their questions about what it is and what their issues are, and to see if there's really a good fit, whether I think Psych-K could help them. And then we actually set a time for a session. Sessions are about an hour and 15 minutes tops. And usually we go about a week between sessions because you need time to integrate the energetic shifts. And basically, I have, you know, some clients come in, there's one session and they're done. Others, you know, we have 3, 4, 6 session package. I have a 12-week coaching program where we go through all the Psych-K balances. And then what I'm finding is that I'm also a financial advisor and tax person. So I'm finding that when I talk to people about their issues, their financial stuff comes up. So I have a natural talent or ability or gift to help them with that stuff. So, you know, that's an area that we can explore also. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, yeah, amazing. So that's I think that's it for today's podcast.
Great. Sorry. Yeah. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. I
yeah, thank
appreciate
you.
the
I mean,
opportunity. And
it's always so great, like hearing you the way that you share it with the slides. This is the first time I've heard it in this way, and it's edifying for me, and makes a lot of sense. And I really enjoyed this conversation.
great. Well, thank you.
Thank
The
you.
idea of contextualizing things helps. I think the visuals
Yeah,
help. Yeah.
yeah. So thank you everyone for another podcast with Behind the Curtain with Ade and Raan. Again, Ron's not here today. He's has a cold, so his is a lot worse than mine. So he regrets not being able to join, but we'll be back for another one, probably maybe next week. So you can expect these podcasts to start rolling out regularly. So today we were joined with Bill Fauth, Psych-K facilitator. Thank you, Bill, for joining us today.
Thank you, Ade. Have a great
Thank
day.
you. Thank you.